Hi everyone. So in the last videos we have seen how to install Python in your system. We have also seen how to install a code editor, and we have seen very basic examples of how to use terminals, right? So from today onwards we would actually start the coding journey of ours, right? So without further ado, let's start our Python journey. So first of all, you already know how to open Python because I have actually shown that to you in the last video. But it is all so there are a few ways to open Python, but it is always recommended to actually use the command prompt or terminal as I have shown you before. So let's start the command prompt first. You remember, like I can actually search it in the search bar command prompt, and it would appear in the start menu, and once I click on it, the command prompt appears. Now the command prompt will show you the default location, which usually the root location or the home location. You can always change the location. It's based on your preference. We can change the location, and once we are in the D drive, let's start with some previous stuff that we have done in the last video. Let's make a folder called demo, and let's move to the demo folder. And now let's do two things. First of all, let's open the VS Code editor over here. So you remember code and as dot basically represents that you want to open VS Code editor, and secondly dot basically represents that you want to open it in the current location, which is the under the demo folder. So if I actually browse to demo folder, if I just go to file explorer, uh, and volume D, and there's a demo folder. In the demo folder right now there's nothing, but once I start actually making a file over here, so let's start. So you can see that it's in the demo folder. So whenever I would start any file, uh, let's create a file. You can just click on this new file button over here, and you can write demo.py. And remember that when we are actually using Visual Studio Code, you should always actually write the extension name, because by writing down the extension, you basically tell VS Code editor that what kind of file it is. So see, whenever I write .py, it understands that okay, it is a Python file, and you could see that there's a small change in the icon of that file, right? This is the icon of the Python, so it understands that it's a Python file. So I name it demo.py, and it's already open, right? So now how do we actually use Python? So Python is a programming language, right? So this is a what a programming language basically does. It basically creates a medium between you and your system or the computer. So you write instruction and your computer basically executes that. Any programming language is basically just that. It's you're writing instructions to the computer and the computer executes that. Now usually the computer doesn't understand anything unless like it's just 0 and 1, right? It understands binary only. But it would be very hard for complex things, very elaborate things to describe in binary. That's why there are so many programming languages that are present. Some are very easy to learn, some are very difficult to actually master, some are more closer to English than some other. So there are so many different languages. We have started with Python, and whenever you actually write something in Python, basically it is again we also called it as an interpreter, where it actually trying to interpret whatever is written in the instructions, right? So now what we can do a lot of things with Python. So how do we execute one program? We can execute it through command line. That is, we can directly open the Python interpreter and write commands there, or we can actually create a file like this, as you can see in Visual Studio Code, and run this file. So I will show you both, and later on we will actually explain why this file version might be actually better than the writing directly in the Python interpreter. So how do we open Python interpreter? For now, let's do both parallelly. So we have in the command prompt we had actually made the small things like actually opening the Visual Studio Code and something like that. We are still in the demo, and you can see that it's still in the prompt phase. So now if you just write Python and just press enter, you would see that it shows me the Python version, type, help, everything, and then there are three greater than signs which appears. So this is the prompt for Python interpreter. So whenever these three greater than signs appears, you would know that okay, my Python is running properly. There's no problem with my Python interpreter. Okay, so now you can write some comment over here. I am writing gibberish, but you can write a comment over here, and you can directly just run it, and the Python interpreter will basically run the command for you. Or you can also, as I said, you can go over a file, you write instructions, and what Python interpreter does, it goes line by line. This is also very important. It goes line by line and executes each line of command. And if anything between any of the line has a bug or error, something basically that the Python interpreter doesn't understand or couldn't actually execute, then it will stop there. So nothing will be executed. So that's the difference between an interpreter and compiler, but that's a different story. We don't want to get to that, but for now just understand that there are two ways of doing things. Running a Python code, you can write few lines in a Python file, or directly in the Python interpreter. Okay, so let's start with something very simple. Let's start with some operators. So you know some mathematical operators, right? Which basically help us to do any kind of mathematical operations. So there is addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. Then there are some extra which we use in maths, but we use more in any programming basically. So let's actually try to do that. How do you add or do any this sort of stuff in Python? So you can just write two numbers, and say if the first number is 7635, the second number is 324, and you just press enter, and then you would see that after this three greater than, it actually in the next line it returned the output, which is the addition of these two numbers. And so this is how a command line or Python interpreter basically works. Like whenever you actually write some command, it will output it just next to that command, right? So you would can see that output over here. I can give a big number as well, and I can include some fractional number as well with it, as long as it is a number. And again you would get a output, the correct output. So it can sort of work as a calculator, right? So any programming language, especially Python for our case, works like a calculator. And just to showcase you the other things, like we can do subtraction. Let's take a big number, and then again write another number, and you get the output result, desired output. Similar with multiplication, so you use the star notation in your keyboard for multiplication. Let's give another number, and you get the output. And for division, again, you know the front slash, you can use the slash, front slash, and you get the division. Now there are some, these are very basic operators, right? Basic mathematical operators that you can use in programming as well, just almost like a calculator. But apart from that, there are some other operators that is more widely used in programming, like integer division. What is integer division? Let's take the previous division itself, like it was 654,326, 654,326 divided by 876. So this space is not necessary. If you want, you can actually remove the space as well. So just actually see over here. So you got 746.94748858, a big number, right? And it was a fraction. So when you do integer division, it basically do a floor of the quotient. So in mathematics there's a function called floor, which basically takes the integer which is less than equal to that particular number, right? So right, for this you get the 746, which is the integer. So if I do integer division over here, for integer division you place two slashes instead of one. For as you have done for a normal division, you put two slashes and it would return you 746. So basically it gives you the integer part of the quotient. Put it very simply, it returns the integer part of the quotient. Okay, it might be actually required in a lot of cases where you do not want to deal with fraction numbers, and we will come to that later on. Apart from integer division, there are two more things which also is helpful. One is again something you are very familiar with, that is called exponent, right? You might be want to do something with powers. So like 2 to the power 3. How do you do that? You write two stars. So one star is for multiplication. Using two star basically means 2 to the power whatever number you write afterwards, like say 3. So 2 to the power 3 means 2 into 2 into 2. So 2 multiplied 3 times, that is 2 to the power 3. And how do you represent that in Python? You use two multiplications, one after the other. So it would return you 8. Similarly, like if I do 8 to the power 4, so I would write it like this, and it would give me 4096. So this is how you write exponent in Python. And the last but not the least is modulus. So modulus is something that if you're familiar with number theory, you might have done a lot. So modulus basically gives you the remainder. So if I say do let's take a very simple example first. Let's say 25 and let's divide it by 4. So you know what happens. So you get 6.25. That's the number it should get. Yeah, so 6.25. Now if I did integer division, what should I have gotten? It should have been 6, right? Because 6.25, the integer part of it is 6, so it should give me 6. Now if I might be actually interested in the remainder, not in the question. For that we use the modulus operator, which is represented by percent sign. So use percent for 25% for and basically what it should remain. So if you actually divide 25 by 4, you should have 1 as remainder, right? And 1 is written. So percent is basically used to define modulus, which is basically returns you the remainder of a division. So you can do it for a large number as well. So let's take the previous example, like 654,326, that big number that we have used previously, and we divided by 876, right? So we just used percent 876 and it would give us the remainder, which was 830. So these are very basic operators that is basic mathematical operators that are also used in Python programming. And so why I am actually showing you this, because it's very basic, right? You all know these operations, but I'm just showing you how to do it in Python, because later on when we actually construct more complex, more elaborate examples, we will be using these simple operators and some other concepts to build more complex, more elaborate things, right? So this is the beginning step of those things. Okay, now we have been using interpreter, Python interpreter. We can actually use, as I said, like we can actually use this Python file to run things as well. Before we do that, let's show you one thing which is again very crucial. I have already shown you how to enter into Python, right? So you just open command prompt, you just write Python, type Python and press enter. How to exit Python? It's very simple. You just write exit, put a parenthesis. So this is how you basically define a function. We will be actually visiting this very soon. So just write exit, give a parenthesis, open parenthesis, close parenthesis, and press enter. And as you can see, now I have exited Python. So again, my prompt for the command prompt have written, right? So we have exited Python. Again, there are other ways to do that. Instead of exit, you can also write quit. So I have again entered Python to enter Python, and again I am writing quit to exit Python again. And there's also another shortcut, because you might not be interested to write the whole word. And for those of you, there's another shortcut where you can press Control Z. Control, there's usually a control key in your keyboard. You can press that and Z. So there would be a symbol appearing, and just press enter. You would again exit the all the Python interpreter basically. Okay, now there's so many things in our terminal. So there's a neat command called CLS, which basically cleared the screen. Okay, now let's what I've been talking about, like until now we have been just showing how to run very simple operators in Python interpreter. Now we can actually go to the Python file that we have created. So it is called demo.py, right? And we can do the same thing. So I have shown you we can directly write the commands, and it should actually prepare everything, right? Here I will actually do one thing called print. Print means actually printing the value to the terminal, printing the returned value. So this is a function. This same function can be used in the Python interpreter as well, but let us use print. And let me write something similar, like just doing a plus, print 8 plus 6. You save this file. Let's go to command prompt. And to how do you run a Python file? So you just write Python, and you actually basically write the name of the file, and it will show you exactly the result, right? Because I actually put a print. So what would have been what would have happened if actually I didn't put print? So let's say I put 8 plus 6 and nothing else. Let's put 8 plus 6 and nothing else. What would have happened? So here actually the Python file got executed. It's not like the Python file didn't get executed, because why, you know, because you get the prompt screen returned, right? So whenever you actually get back to this prompt screen without any error, so if there was any error, it would have shown you, right? So the Python interpreter would have shown you that there's an error, but there was no error over here. It got executed, but what happened is, though it was executed, we haven't told the file to actually show this whatever the output was in the terminal window. And how do you tell the Python interpreter to show it to terminal window? That's why we use the print. So print is not actually printing it into a paper, but print means printing the return to the terminal. We would use it a lot. Like print is one of the most important thing that you would learn in Python, because for debugging and for basically validating that whether our work is right or not, or anything, basically we would use this print function, because print will basically return or output whatever. It basically says the interpreter that okay, whatever is returning, let's print that out in the terminal. So again, let always remember to save whenever you are changing anything in your file, and go back to the terminal, and you could just write python demo.py again, and it would again return you the number 14, which was 8 plus 6. And you could do similar stuff, like what we have shown, integer division, probably 98, integer division with 8, say for example. And again, if I run the same file, it would give me 12. So you could do all these things by just doing it through the file. And later on, we will actually show why actually writing codes in a file and executing that file might be a better option. So hopefully guys, this is all for today. and hopefully you have learned something. We are progressing very slowly actually, because I am actually trying to make it as beginner friendly as possible. So I do not want to do a lot of things in a single video. I'm trying to have a very slow moderate pace. Hopefully you have learned something, and if you have any doubts, anything, you can put it into the comments. If you like this kind of video, please share it with your friends, whoever actually might be benefited with this kind of content. And like, share and subscribe. So keep learning guys. Until next time, bye bye.